Hello everyone, welcome back to the Tabletop and Hobby Stop. Today I have a Kickstarter based video for you. I'm sorry about not getting one out last week. I actually tore my bicep, so I was not able to do the video that I wanted. I wanted to do one that had to do with painting. Had everything ready to go, tore my bicep, was unable to finish the video, so I apologize about that. But we're actually going to be moving into the new Kickstarter that I'm super excited about from Battle Systems, game called Maladum. So it's in the Core Space world. If you guys have played Core Space, if you like Core Space, this is going to be the fantasy version of Core Space. Same world, super far in the future, so much so that technology has actually reverted into fantasy. Nanites are magic, are nanites in the blood. Things are being resurrected almost in a necromantic style from all of these nanites, and you are going to take your crew of adventurers through dungeons and explore Core Space. We have salvage, trade, adapt, survive. Going to be most of the main stuff, same stuff in Maladum with a little bit more of a close combat focus. So, this video is not going to have very much editing. I'm sorry about that, guys, because I have my arm is just not working how it should right now. Hopefully I'll be back up giving you a little bit cleaner videos soon. But I have my list of things I want to talk about, so let's just go ahead and start right down the line. For those of you who don't know what Core Space is, or what Maladum is, the reason I have these boxes out here, even though I'm talking about Maladum, is because this is going to have the same system as Core Space. It's been rebuilt from the ground up for certain sections, however, it's going to function very much the same as these two games here. Firstborn being the most recent Kickstarter that they released. Core Space was actually their first game they released, and it was such a big hit that we managed to get Firstborn, which struck right at the right time because where Core Space is more of a player versus player, or player versus environment, or player versus player-ish versus environment, this one is more of a solo experience. That's not to say that you can't intermix them. You can't have multiple people playing this one or play this one solo. However, this one's more solo driven. This one is more two-player driven. Now, what is Maladum going to be? I think Maladum is going to be, well, I know Maladum's going to be a lot closer to this here Core Space Firstborn. So that's the main one we're going to be comparing to. However, I have Core Space out here because this is the one that started it. It's still going to have all of the same elements. They just keep on adding on to this system. So, Maladum, it is going to be a dungeon crawler. Same universe, same style, same general goals, just a different MacGuffin. So we'll start with the simple, what comes in a Core Space box. So we're actually going to move over to the Firstborn box here. You guys will forgive me doing this one-handed. I have the box here. What comes in a box, a Core Space game box? Now, I want to talk really quick about the value. This box, one of these generally sell for about 110 US dollar in the States here. I believe it's about 100 euros overseas. First off, you get a 2x2 nice, highly detailed neoprene mat. I'm going to leave this one folded up. It is a little bit thinner than some other neoprene mats on the market. However, this is actually a good quality neoprene mat. You also get a set of minis. Every Core Space comes with its own set of minis. I'm actually have the first box pulled up here, so I'm going to show you. In that first Core Space box, you get about 20 minis. So you get, for this first one, you get your enemies, you get 3 civilians, NPCs are a huge part of this game, and then you get 2 crews. In Core Space Firstborn, You get a decent amount of enemies. You only get the one crew, so 4 player characters, and then you get a couple of other minis that are going to act as other NPCs. There's no civilians walking around because in Core Space Firstborn, you're actually far out from our galaxy, far out from our established area, and you're looting an ancient alien civilization where the aliens have gone mad because they've been locked in a stasis for so long that their brains have started to decay. So there's not too many random civilians running around. However, there are reporters, there are giant worms, there are random creatures, and also bounty hunters for those random creatures running around. And miners. That's a new one. They did add miners. So you'll hear me talk about NPCs a little bit later on during our gameplay section, but you also get a lot of really nice game components. So you get this is called a threat track. This is hard plastic. You also get some player dashboards. These are hard plastic. You get, I'm going to try to not jiggle this too much for the camera. I separated them out, but you get pegs. You get a bunch of weapons tokens, a bunch of different tokens to represent all sorts of different things, from objectives to weapons to armor, ammo, health packs, artifacts, all sorts of different cool stuff like that. And then these dashboards hold your player class, all of your inventory, and your player card, which will have all of your progress. You also get a bunch of what Battle Systems is known for, which is their cardboard terrain. So on top of that neoprene mat, you actually get this really nice cardboard terrain. So that's a long wall section. You get a bunch of short walls, and then you get these plastic clips, clip them all together. They have a bunch of scenarios, and you get enough terrain to fill up a full board, along with these different sort of cool sci-fi themed reactors. This one is, they call it a Dyson something, I can't remember off the top of my head. You have these pillars, which we're going to see something like this in Maladum. You also have spawn markers, tokens, things like that. Here's a stasis chamber. Now, how is that going to translate over to Maladum? In Maladum, they're actually going to look to have more organic shapes. So those clips, in the sci-fi game, you have a lot of right angle clips and a couple of 45s. I think in Maladum, you're going to have a lot more 45-degree clips. They redesigned their clips, they said, and they're going to blend in a little bit better with the dungeon terrain set. So that's the basics of everything you're going to get in the game, along with your event cards to shake things up and push the game forward. And of course, you get a standard rulebook. This one is the Core Space rulebook. That's an expansion. This is the Firstborn rulebook. These are robust, nice rulebooks. This one is 90. This one's just short of 100 pages, and full color illustrations. Beautiful rulebooks. I love the art in this game. You can see they have a lot of nice pictures, a lot of extra stuff. They have big full spread mini things, and then the scenarios look really well done. So this is a very professional looking game. So now that we know generally what comes in the box for, in this case will be Core Space, but for Maladum, when we look at the Kickstarter later, we'll see all of the specifics. But we'll move on to gameplay. How does gameplay actually work? What we do is we go over, we grab a scenario, we set up our table. So we would get our terrain, and I'm one-handed, so I'm not actually going to set any terrain up, but we use our clips to set up a nice map of a space station or one of those asteroids. Or you could even take it to, if you have a dirt map, you can go to a barren planet and make your own little buildings. Very versatile in that regard. What you do, you set everything up, you march your people in there, and you're basically trying to loot the place dry. In between that, there's also the missions, which really help to get they give you a bunch of assets, basically money. Core Space is called Universal Assets. Maladum, I imagine, is going to be treasure, some sort of generic term like that. You march your people in, they run in, they grab everything they can worth the most value, they stuff it in their pockets, maybe you make a couple of trades, and you fight off an ever-increasing tide of enemies. Now, this game works really, really well as the center line between a skirmish war game and an RPG. So if I were to say skirmish war game, maybe Star Wars Legion Special Rules, or I forget what the Warhammer one is called. You have those over here. Then maybe you go a Frostgrave or a Stargrave. Then over here, I would say is core space, and then you go to like a full RPG like D&D. So I would say this one's a little bit more RPG feel than it is skirmish wargame compared to something like a Stargrave or a Frostgrave. But it still has very much so strong wargaming vibes. I also forgot to mention the dice. Very, very specialized dice. You have randomized dice. These ones are to actually shoot, but you have dice that control your NPCs. You have a ton of NPCs in this game. So let's just break down, starting at the beginning, how you approach a game looting. You go out there, and with your physical pieces of terrain, you can pop open the top's in there. You actually preload these with tokens, you run your characters in, you search for the chest, you pull out what you like, you physically get to pull out the tokens, and you trade out the things in your dashboard. You can only hold, unless you have an expansion, you can only hold what fits in your dashboard. And then as you keep on going through the game, you're expending ammo, you have tokens for ammo, special move, and your health. You're expending ammo, maybe you have to reload, and then on the way out, you're gonna swipe up another piece of loot, and that is how looting works. It's very much so. They say salvage, trade, adapt, survive. I think there's a reason salvage is number one. That's a huge portion of this game. And then fighting. Guys, fighting in this game is, I'll say it is as satisfying as it needs to be for a game this complex. So what you have is this, like I said, you have this constant tide of enemies that are getting more and more fierce as you build up through these games. So this here is the hostility tracker. You start pretty low normally, and then you just build and build and build until eventually you get to the point where these guys are tough as nails, and you are not going to be able to defeat them, and you just got to get out of there. And then you also have times where maybe you're doing really well fighting. So what you do when you fight is you take your stats, you grab a blue die for your first die, and then if it says 2, you grab a red die. If it says 3, you grab 2 red die. So blue die is your 1, then red die, you just roll it, compare it against their armor, and any excess is what the damage you deal to the opposing players or to the opposing NPCs. That's it. That's how simple combat is, and I actually enjoy it very much. It gets a little bit complicated with the iconography, but we'll talk about that later. That's combat. The important thing is about this game is knowing when to run. So while you're getting everything rolling and you're going out, you're fighting everybody, you're shooting things. Every time you shoot, the first time you shoot in a round, you actually add an additional peg to the hostility tracker. So the more activity you're making, the faster things will go south, which is another thing I really like. But the more that happens, the more you do that, the quicker things go bad, and eventually there will come a time where you have to get out of there, or you are going to be wiped out. This is not a superhero game. You are not superhuman. You are a bunch of guys going in, to rob, loot, and pillage an abandoned space station, or sometimes not even abandoned, depending on how you want to play it. You are not a good guy. You are just a guy going in there, 9 to 5. I got to get this stuff out. We got to make some money. Move on to the next job. So running is going to be a very important part of this game, and it adds a very, very distinct intensity to the game. And then after that, we can talk about the scenarios, then the NPCs. Each game comes with, I'd say, around 10 scenarios. However, the new Maladum is going to be 20 scenarios. The thing that I think they're really gonna hit a big win on this one is it sounds like this is gonna be more of a choose your own adventure. I was listening to the creator speak, and he was saying for Maladum, you're gonna make choices that are going to affect what missions you go on, what shows up in future missions, things like that. So that's super exciting to me. We're crossing a little bit further into that RPG category, and that is super thrilling. Now, another important part about gameplay, the NPCs. You have, I'm not going to list all of them, guys, but in core space, I know it's going to be different in Maladum. In core space, you have your bad guys, you have kind of your neutral bad guys, you have neutral people just walking around trying to do their job. You have civilians who are scared out of their minds, who can turn around and shoot you depending on how the dice rolls, or maybe they want to trade with you. They want to join your crew temporarily because they see you as that one bastion of hope to get out of there. You have, if you're in a factory, you have workers, you have police officers, you have gangers, you have reporters, you have all sorts of really, really cool NPCs that add so much flavor to this game. It's the thing that makes it, when I made that comparison to like a Star Wars Legion skirmish to Frostgrave and Stargrave, that's the thing that really pushes it over towards the RPG side of things. The DM-less RPG is those dice add so much variation to the game. Sometimes it can bite you in the butt. Sometimes it feels unfair. However, that is okay, because that is what makes this game special, and I think it's going to be what makes Maladum special, especially if you go out and you do a village scenario or something. I'm going to guess that they're going to have village scenarios released. The creator always releases scenarios, and they have some really cool fantasy village terrain. Sorry guys, my arm is getting to me. They have really cool fantasy village terrain. I guarantee he's going to release in the city mission where you got to fight a bunch of the zombies in the city. So that's going to be awesome. Now, we went over what comes in the box. We went over gameplay. Now I want to go through really quick pros cons list, and I'm going to start with the cons because I think the cons define the game and what makes it good. Weirdly enough about this one, normally that's not the case, but the cons are actually kind of the thing that makes the game good in a lot of cases. As I alluded to before, you are not a hero. This means when you are feeling at the top and you just got a really, really cool piece of salvage and you're ready to skedaddle, you're ready to get out of here, and then the dice roll poorly and you get hit with two strong guys on top of you and you get wiped out in basically a turn, that feels very, it's a little bit gutting sometimes, because you're like, oh, I had such a high, I was doing so well, and now I'm dead on the floor, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get to him to save him, because if I go, I might end up wiping everybody. I just lost all my loot. I took the gamble, and I definitely lost. That can be a big con for people, but I think that, like I said before, that's something that makes this game special. That's one of the things, even though I put it in the cons category, it ends up being a little bit of a pro because it guts you, but it keeps you coming back. That's what makes this game special. It is a harsh game, and I normally don't like harsh games. I normally like to feel a little bit more heroic, but this one does it right. And then I will also say, tying in with that, when you have to run, sometimes you want to finish the fight. Sometimes you want to finish that objective. And when you have to run, it can be pretty frustrating. But once again, that is what makes the game feel good. So even though this is a con, and it will be too big of a con for some people, it works out to be a little bit more of a pro, I think, in most cases. Especially when you're playing with a friend and they backstab you, because you can do that in this game. They backstab you and you're like, dude, come on, we had the deal. And they're like, well, I don't care. Like, I got the thing. Haha, sucks to be you. It burns you. But that's okay, because that is the social side that you don't get with too many other games. Let's talk about the iconography. This one I think is... The pro that goes along with it is you have a lot of powers. You have a lot of different things. You have a lot of versatility in your tools, in your weapons, in your people. But if we take a look... I know that this is a little bit zoomed out and I'm one-handed, but we take a look at this card. I'm going to point, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Normally the guns have 1, but there's 7. If he had this, that would be 8. And then, like, she has 1 right there. That's 9, 10, 11 potentially icons that you could have on your character board. And you're like, what is all of this garbage? What is going on here? And you have to, whenever you see an icon that you don't know what it is, you and even the dice, every side is basically an icon for the civilian dice. You need to go through here, you're flipping. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. For this one, it's a little bit worse in the other books, but yeah, 9 pages of icons. 9 pages to reference whenever you're looking for what an icon does. And then each of those icons have multiple stages. So you're like, well, now I need to read 3 paragraphs to find out what I want to do. It can be a little bit cumbersome. Super awesome that you're that granular with your customization. It's what makes this game really cool, more towards that RPG side. However, it can bog the game down very quick. They released a card pack with all of the icons on it. I really hope they do this for Maladum. They released a card pack with all of the icons on it, so you can go through and set out the relevant cards so you don't need to dig through the book. I think that is almost essential have in this game would be the icon cards. If you want to play this regularly with a group, especially a group that has regular new people coming in regular, hand them those icon cards so that they can just really quick pull out a card and reference it. Let's go now on to the pros. I would say the biggest pro to this game set, and I think it's going to carry over to Maladum, is how versatile it is. Because it's so close to an RPG, even though you natively can control 1, 2, 4, 6 characters, you can choose to play it player versus player. You can do player versus environment. You can do co-op. You can do each person takes on one character and you go and fight a dungeon like a traditional dungeon crawler, like you're playing old school Gauntlet or something. You can treat it. You can have someone play as the DM and control all the bad guys and the civilians. You can make your own scenarios. You can choose within the rules, reasonably, with tiny changes. You can make this almost any type of RPG dungeon crawler style experience you want. In between the game is super fun. You have so much that you can do. As far as selling, buying, trading, leveling up, all of that stuff. It gives you that full RPG experience without having to bog down the game too much, as long as you're not playing straight in a row. So I think it's a very compelling in-between game thing for... I don't know how it's going to work for Maladum. I imagine they're going to do a similar system, but for Core Space, you actually get to level up. your ship's breaking down, you're constantly repairing it. Once you have it repaired, you're making upgrades, stuff like that. Another pro would be those NPCs. Because of the nature of the die rolls, the unpredictability of an NPC really adds to the unpredictability of the game. So when you're playing a solo experience like Maladum is going to be, or like Core Space Firstborn, it really allows you to hammer in on the heart of the game without getting too procedural. Because if I know exactly what the bad guys are going to do every single time, I'm just going to exploit that. Whether I try to or not, that's just how it works. The die rolls really, really help that with this game. Also, the way that the turns are organized. So you have the hostility phase, which is where you draw your event cards, which add another big level of randomness to it. And then after that, you have your trader phase. So you go, and then you have your enemy phase. Your enemies get to act after you, which means that you can't always quite get yourself totally safe. They can always come in and do something. Because if you go before your enemies, you can generally plan on how to save yourself before new enemies start coming in and kicking your teeth in. You're like, oh, well, if I just hide around the corner, no big deal. But in this game, you can try and hide around the corner, and then someone spawns up right behind you, and now you're in that fight. They're hitting you in the face before you can react to them, and it adds that level of tension that is missing in a lot of single player experiences. Just to finish out the turns, after that you have NPC phase, so the civilians go after the purge goes. So basically the purge can come in, wipe out a bunch of civilians, or maybe the purge come in, walk too far in, and then next thing you know, you got the civilians shooting at the purge, distracting them, or the purge are going after the civilians, and you get to walk away scot-free until the civilian dies, and then you have a whole horde of purge that you'd been ignoring on you on your tail. So, and then after that's the assessment phase. That's just where you clean everything up. So the NPCs definitely are the flavor of this game. Everything that happens in the environment, if you have your Frostgrave and Stargrave, basically you know your NPC is going to go forward and hit you. It doesn't matter what he's doing, he's gonna stand there and shoot you. These ones, the enemies will do that. However, the civilians, the random creatures, and the enemy spawns make everything unpredictable enough to where this is a fulfilling solo experience. That is what I have for all of my pros and cons and the look over the Core Space selection here. So we're gonna pop on over to the Kickstarter page, and I'll talk about Maladum specifically. And we are on to the Maladum Kickstarter page. We see that they had an initial goal. This is all in US dollars, so initial goal just shy of 61,000. They are at 473 as of me filming this, and they have 16 days ago. I think they started with 20 days, so they managed to do all of that in about 4 days so far, or maybe 2 to 4 days, something around there. And this one is going to be a very successful Kickstarter. So as we scroll down here, we see number one, this picture here. This Kickstarter is going to be a dual Kickstarter. So you can choose to back the game. You can choose to back their re-release of a dungeon set, or you can do both. I personally, I'm going to do both. They're going to be adding scenarios specific to the game and dungeon set for doing both. They said that in one of the updates. So looking over at the pledges, you have the combined pledge. You can see that's what I'm going with. And then you have retailer pledge, of course. You have the dungeon terrain, which comes out to be about $97 US or 79 euros. Or the Kickstarter edition Dungeons of Enveron for 100 euros or about $121 US. So in my opinion, that's also another pro that I didn't go over, is the value for money. So this game gives you a lot for what you're getting, especially if you go through the Kickstarter. And this image right here is going to be more of a combined pledge image, because this has that 2D dungeon terrain that you're not going to be seeing in the base box. Well, you'll get the dungeon terrain, but I mean how you have multiple levels here. So we scroll down. Right here is more what you're looking at, with everything kind of flat, no 2D levels, but you will be getting a decent amount of miniatures. We'll see down below. They also have the rules download if you're interested in looking at the rules. And here's a good picture of what you'll be getting in the actual campaign itself. So enough dungeon terrain to fill out all of the scenarios and have a decently densely populated board on that 2x2 area. So these are 2x2 mats. You get all of your dashboards. We'll see those later on. You get all your dice, your range rulers, like I was talking about with the core space box. This is going to be the terrain set that you could look at. So here's where you're getting more terrain. You're still getting an additional neoprene mat if you go with both. So you can actually combine these two to have really big play areas. You can see right here just a little module thing. Here's Colin, the creator of Core Space, explaining how the system works. Now let's go over what you're actually getting in the box here. We're going to look through and we're going to talk about that real quick. So you're getting your 7 hero minis. That's 7 as of now. I can almost guarantee they're going to add additional hero minis. In fact, I believe they've already added a few additional through stretch goals. And on these cards, you'll have front and back. So these will be the NPC sides, will be the back, and then the front will be your character sides. You get 7 class boards. Those will probably be double-sided like Core Space. And then you get your enemies. So you get 8 Lamenters, you get 3 Myria, 2 Hellfonts, a Melagant, which is kind of like a Necromancer, and a Rot Troll. So this is going to be kind of a zombie-based game, but the nanites that are the magic in this game are the thing reanimating all of these creatures. You get your character boards for the enemies, and then you get your wandering beasts. These are going to be the random guys that are not on the bad guys' sides, but they'll wander around and cause havoc for you, maybe pick fights with you, maybe they pick fights with the bad guys. Now the cool thing about this is you'll notice Sirio here clearly supposed to be the elf type, but he's also an alien, because this is in the Core Space world. You got Greet is an alien, Grogmar is an alien, and if you're a Core Space, if you've been with Core Space a while, you'll notice as we scroll down here, these creatures right here, the cankers, they kind of look a little bit like the little purge, the ones that come with the purge annihilator. So you'll see little bonuses like that all throughout this game. You can tell that it's definitely same art style influenced, and it's in that same world. So super cool concept, bringing Core Space into fantasy while still keeping the sci-fi. Here's another picture of what a board might look like. Now, here's the game components. We're getting our 4 adventurer dashboards. We're getting 4 NPC dashboards. We're getting our base camp area, pegs, dice, all of the stuff you need to run the game. The reference cards I'm always a fan of. Event cards, 50 of those so far. I'm going to guess, if I had to guess, I'm going to say I already know we're getting more Wandering Beasts. I would almost guess that we're going to get double the Lamenters, Myria, and Hellfonts, maybe even an extra Rock Troll. Just by the nature of previous Kickstarters, I would guess we'd probably get double of a lot of these maybe 10 heroes total, maybe 12. This is just me, pure speculation, and we'd get a whole lot more dungeon walls. I already know they upgraded the token pouch. Maybe we get a few more extra adventurer dashboards, maybe a few extra NPC dashboards. Definitely going to get some more tokens over time, and I can almost guarantee we're going to get some more event cards as Kickstarters. The dice, I don't see any reason we would get those upgraded or changed. Same with the rulers, because that's all you need to play. Rule book, campaign book, I would assume we'll see some more campaigns in the future, tutorial book, and then here's the bonus content so far. So we have two more adventurers there, 3 more adventurers, 4 total, so they already beat the number that I guessed. Already some bonus equipment, some rats, a bear, upgraded that token pouch, more classes and skills, more event cards, like I said. So they're already unlocking this stuff. It's already a super successful Kickstarter. So if you hop on board, you're just going to get a whole bunch of extra stuff for your money. That's really the benefit of the Kickstarter, is how much extra you're getting for your money. Now we go to the terrain side of things. You get a bunch of walls, a bunch of doors. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. It's a very pretty looking piece of terrain, but it breaks down. It's all a little bit more organic looking. A bunch of trusses, scaffolding, wooden steps. Dungeon furniture is the thing that I probably love the most. Like this bookcase and these book piles just look super cool. The well, super cool. Font. Tombs, these you'll be able to raid. The chests you'll be able to pick through, of course. There's that neoprene mat. There's all your clips. Ooh, I like those 3-sided clips. Very cool. Now here's our bonus content. Prison cage. The nice thing about Kickstarters with this company is literally all they have to do for a terrain-based bonus is throw in another sheet. So right here, you get more doors and walls. They're probably just going to throw in another sheet. The same sheet, they don't need to reprint anything, so they can add more. As long as they get enough money that the manufacturing costs are low enough, they can throw in another sheet. So more dungeon walls. You got armory. That forge looks really cool. Barrels. Looks like some hidden walls, secret chamber, and some bunks. Now, what do I think we'll see? The nice thing about this company is they really do listen when people say, hey, I think we should have, we have these barrels, we should have a full rack of barrels. And then a bunch of people are like, yeah, that'd be cool. Let's do a rack of barrels. Colin will go in and he'll just make he'll make a rack of barrels and say, hey, you guys like this? You want this in the Kickstarter? Here you go. Very good Kickstarter to follow in that way. So I would guess what we would see, definitely more walls. We're going to get more doors. We're going to get more Greeblies like this. I really like the forge. I hope they do more things of this nature. But the terrain side of the bonuses are going to break down more or less like this, where you're just going to get extra Greeblies, you're going to get extra wall pieces, ruined walls. Maybe we get, because this is almost a necromantic thing, it would be super cool if we get some gross contaminated walls where like spores or rot is growing on the walls. I think that would be super cool, where you could do like a rot room or a den of rot, of these a den of these nanite gross festering places, or maybe a big spider web style festering nest. I think that would be super cool to see. Rat's nest, they've already got a couple of rats, and then of course you have the combined pledge. That's what it's going to look like all together, and includes quests for larger gaming areas, so you'll be able to shove both of those together. Now to wrap this out, I appreciate all you guys hanging out with me. I know this video is a little bit longer. I didn't get to edit it nearly as much as I would like to with my arm. But the reason why I would back this Kickstarter, if you have any interest in Maladum, is because of the value that you're getting. So you cannot fill a table with this much terrain for cheaper. I mean, unless if you're using shoeboxes, which work totally fine, but to fill a table and have it look this good for this cheap, if you are any type of D&D player, role-playing game, war game, anything like that, this really does give you a great value for money. And as you get more people in this Kickstarter, that value is just going to keep on growing and growing and growing. So awesome value for money. The miniatures, you can use them in any game. It doesn't, if you don't like the game, you still got a whole pile of miniatures. You got some random measuring rulers. You got some cool stuff. You can make your own games out of it. But also beyond that, Colin, the creator, continues to support the game with free content, and all of the core space games have been growing since they've released. They continue to release free content, paid content. They update rules, they update scenarios, things like that, to make it the best game possible. So you're really buying into a very alive game experience. This one's definitely a win. You can see they've got a lot of people buying into this game, into this world. It is a super cool addition to the Battle Systems game family. And if you like core space, but maybe you're not a huge sci-fi fan, huge win. If you're a huge sci-fi fan and you like core space, but you're not much of a fantasy fan, you're still able to use all of this stuff in your core space world. So the pledge levels, once again, you have the terrain, you have the game, or you can do both. I'm doing both just because value for money, I know it's going to be there. Also, I expect there to be a whole lot more Kickstarter perks, because in a few short days we've already unlocked a ton, and they're just going to keep on going up and up. So back it for the perks, back it for the game. It is all a win. The nice thing is nothing is ever just a Kickstarter exclusive. They always release everything, so you won't miss out. However, you will miss out on how reasonably priced everything will be. You'll just have so much to work with, and you will have all of the add-ons that they plan to release for quite a while. Great game, great experience, great company. So this one's a win for me, guys. Go ahead, hit me in the comments if you have any questions about either game. I'll do my best to answer all of the Maladum questions. I'm pretty experienced for all things core space, so I should be able to answer every question you have to do with core space. But it's been fun, guys, and keep a lookout for core space videos coming in the future.